Hello everyone, welcome to Amrita as monthly current affairs series, and we're starting with the July month of economy. So basically there are two topics that I would like to discuss in this session. First is Primary Agricultural Credit Society. So why basically they are in the news? Because the NABARD has said that we will provide 500 crore grant based scheme for turning this PSEs into multi-service centers, right? But first we have to, that is the problem we face in the economy sessions, because we have to set the context of it. So what these things are, so I hope you have read. First we'll discuss the context. So this is the context actually. So the formal financial intermediaries are there, right, in which we have banks and we have non-banks. This is the classification that has come after the 1991 Narsimhan committee recommendations, right? So within the banks, we have commercial banks and we have cooperative banks. Remember, we have discussed the urban cooperative banks in detail. The limit, just one thing I want to highlight, one of the students has told me that I have, in one of the PPTs, it was written that 1 lakh is the limit by the deposit insurance company, but it has been raised to the 5 lakh. So keep that in mind for all the commercial banks that the insurance service has been provided. Now, coming back to the topic. So the urban cooperative banks we have read. Urban cooperative banks are divided being the scheduled and the non-scheduled, and one state and the single state. What about the state cooperative banks? The state cooperative banks are actually, so first we will see among the cooperative banks, the number of the urban cooperative banks are 35% and the rural cooperative banks are around 65%. Within the rural cooperative banks, we have 3-tier arrangement. So we have this kind of arrangement: state cooperative banks, district central cooperative banks, and primary agricultural credit society. Before that, we have short division which provides short-term loans and which provide the long-term loans. Long-term loans are very less, so we don't have to focus a lot on them. We have to focus on these things, right? If we talk about numbers, so biggest number is of the primary agriculture credit society, because they work in coordination, they work in a hierarchical manner. For example, the deposits in PSE goes there, then goes there. The investment into PSEs goes from here to there, right? This is the process actually. A hierarchical, interconnected and integrated structure is there of the rural cooperative banks, which provide the short-term loans, right? Now, if you see the numbers as well, you see primary agricultural society, out of the 96,000 rural cooperative banks, we have primary agricultural society around 95,000. So majority of them like that. Then 33 are these, then 363 are these, and then 96,000 are these. So these are, you can say, the very the gateway to the cooperative banks, and especially into the rural areas where the financial inclusion is less, where this formal intermediaries are less. So the presence of these cooperative banks is important, these rural cooperative banks. I hope you have read all this in the banking sector static portion. Now, just for the revision sake, as we are discussing, now, as we have read this Banking Regulation Amendment Act that we have read in the June month, right? It is applicable. RBI's supervision power has been extended to only the urban cooperative banks, not to the rural cooperative banks. So what about these rural cooperative banks, which are still outside the ambit of this very high scrutiny from the RBI? They face the similar problems that are faced by the urban cooperatives. So poor governance structure is there, very poor innovation, digitalization, and all these things are not there in these cooperative banks. And that is why most of the times they are unprofitable. They do not serve the purpose they intend to serve, right? So this is the problem the rural cooperative faces. This urban cooperative and this should be rural cooperative. Okay, right. So in that context, the current affair comes that NABARD has announced that 5,000 crore grant based scheme for turning this PSE into the multi-service center, right? So to provide them, for this, it will lead to the computerization of this PSE, a professional outlook. For example, some computer, some digitalization, some new skilling, and all these things will be done to improve the outlook of these cooperative societies. Getting my point? So let us see. So PSEs are one-stop shop for meeting the varied needs of the farmer. Very important role in the rural credit system. They provide short-term and the medium-term loans to the rural people to meet their financial requirement. Now, I hope now you get the context. From August month itself, we will, I have said, our current affairs is going to take a relatively better turn. We will include a lot of context. We will go for the question, and the best part will be the big picture stuff. So stay tuned for us with us, right? So we have discussed this. So rural cooperative bank, this is the structure. Now this is the first one done. The second one is that I wanted to discuss with you, that is NBFC. Now NBFC crisis is too much in news, right? Because of the IL and FS crisis. First thing is that. Then DHFL crisis. Both of the NBFCs have not done really well. Here the directors have 31,000 crore they have invested in some other place. IL and FS crisis, we have seen, we have read about it, that they have defaulted on their interest payments to the short term lending. So we have to first get to know, and plus the economic survey has come up with in a specific chapter on the NBFC, right? So in that context, we also have to read about them. So let us see one by one. So let us see the basic idea of the NBFC. What NBFC does. So NBFC, they have a liability side and they have an asset side. Majority of the NBFC give long-term loans, and a lot of them give loans to the MSMEs, right? Now these loans that are given to the MSMEs and the long-term loans given for the infrastructure, for example, IL&FS gives long-term loans for this building roads, building bridges, right? So these loans will provide returns in a long run. They have high gestation period, right? And when these loans are provided, then it creates a very critical impact on the status of the Indian economy. And that is why NBFC are very critical to the Indian economy. You can see from there, because of such loans being provided to such infrastructure, such MSME, and this is why they are very critical to the growth in the Indian economy. That's fine. From where they get the money? So they get some sort of long-term borrowing. For example, for MSME, if they are sending, so SIDBI provides them a good funding. SIDBI's main purpose is to help MSMEs. So long-term borrowing comes from SIDBI. Long-term borrowing comes from this NABARD, SIDBI and all these things, right? But they also rely on the short-term borrowing. What is this short-term borrowing? They are called LDMC, Liquid Debt Mutual Funds. LDMF, sorry. Liquid Debt Mutual Funds. So basically the mutual fund in which you invest, for example, in which you must have invested a mutual fund sahi hai. These mutual fund invest in these companies, right? For the short term, they invest in these companies and they give fund to these companies. These fund companies get returns from these loans and they pay to these mutual funds. This is a normal process. When the economy is doing well, when the economy is booming, economy is doing well, this process goes on, right? Now, so you see one thing. There is one common thing that you can see, that is asset liability mismatch. Why? If we compare with this short-term borrowing means you have to return the loans, the interest in loans and the interest in a very short term, but you are getting the returns from here in the long run, right? For example, you are getting returns after 10 to 20 years, and here you have to pay the returns in 6 months, for example, to the mutual fund, right? Because you can take out your mutual fund money anytime, right? Mutual fund, that is the advantage of the mutual fund. You can take out your money anytime. So that is the whole scenario. Now you can see asset liability mismatch. Asset long term and liability short term. When the economy is doing well, when the economy is booming, it is doing well, these things are managed because a lot of long term loans are there. Infrastructure is being built up very quickly and everything goes fine. They get some sort of a payment and they go for this rollover of this risk. They get this rollover risk. Okay, that's fine. We will give you 6 months. I will pay. Then again, give us money, mutual fund, give us money, and we will pay you back again. And this thing goes on. So NBFC is always in a asset liability management work. They always keep on doing. So you can say that is a structural problem, a structural issue with the NBFC. That the asset side, long-term loan, and at the liability side, some short-term borrowings are there. So this is the structural issue with the NBFC. When the economy is doing well, everything is fine, sab changa si. But when the economy is not doing well, then it creates a problem. For example, let us say a loan has been given to an infrastructure company or loan has been given to MSMEs. Now MSMEs, because of demonetization, GST now due to coronavirus, are not able to return their loan. Now they are not able to return their loan. So what will happen? Will they able to give the money to him? No. To this mutual fund? No. They will say, no, we are not able to give money. These people who have invested in the mutual fund, they will say, give us our money back. So it creates what is called as the redemption pressure. It has been termed by the economic survey as the redemption pressure. Redemption pressure. What is this? This is similar to the condition of the bank run. It is similar to the condition of the bank run. That means the mutual fund will say, okay, that's fine, give us our money back, even if we are not getting any profit from you, this NBFC. NBFC will say, okay, we are not able to give you the full money and the interest, take the money, whatever you can. Now, do you think the mutual fund will come again to invest in this in NBFC? Answer is no. So this NBFC will face what? This is called liquidity crunch. You must have heard this word, that NBFCs are facing liquidity crunch, and this is the liquidity crunch we are talking about. The short-term borrowings is not happening, right? And this is where, when this will not happen, when the money from here does not happen, then how can they extend the long-term loans, right? Now you will give me the argument that what about this? What about the capital of this NBFC? The capital base of this NBFC? Yes, that depends upon which NBFC has the more financial resilience. If the NBFC has a good financial resilience, that is fine. Now, based upon that, economic survey has said that there are 3 types of risk in the NBFC. I have explained you the basic thing. Now, first risk is risk from the asset liability mismatch, that we have read, that the asset is of long run and liability is of majorly the short term. That is a problem. So let us see. So first is the structural problem, liability and asset problem. Second problem is of the interconnectedness. That means the interconnectedness of this long liquidity debt mutual funds and NBFC. We have seen the short-term mutual fund and the NBFC. So if there is a problem in the NBFC, it gives the problem to the mutual fund. We have seen the redemption pressure, mutual fund not taking their money out without any profit and giving low returns to the people. So that create problems in the mutual fund also. And whenever the problems in the mutual fund come, the NBFC will face the problem. So a lot of problem will come from the interconnectedness, that is called liability structure over dependent on the short term fund. If within the liability, we are dependent too much upon the short term funds. And this causes a systemic risk to the NBFC. And this is being termed as a redemption pressure by the economic survey. Getting my point? Third point is the resilience of the NBFC itself. Now, for example, if NBFC has a good capital adequacy ratio, we have read about capital adequacy ratio, right? That is the capital tier 1 divided by risk weighted asset. We have read about it. One question is also there down the line. So if the company has a good capital adequacy ratio, fine. Depends upon how much short term as a percentage of the borrowing they have done. If the percentage is less, their financial resilience will be more. What about the loan quality? Where they are giving the loan, how those people are, right? How good companies they have funded, how risky investments they have done, how much provisions they have done for the loan. So these are the key terms you must be reading in NPA. So these factors determine the risk in the NBFC. Now this is the slide directly from the economic survey. So now I have done that to make you understand this. So NBFC facing the crisis from the asset liability mismatch, financial and the operating resilience, and the interconnectedness risk of the LDMF and the NBFC. Getting my point? And this leads to the redemption pressure, and that leads to the rollover risk in the NBFC. So if the question comes, if the question on these terms will come, they will call for the this term. What do you understand by this? Question will come very easy. This concept is more relevant for us in the main exam, but from the prelims perspective, some sort of good question can be framed, and the much I have discussed, that would be enough for you to discuss, for you to understand and to answer that particular question in the prelims, right? Just one last idea that is being given in the economic survey, that NBFCs, these NBFCs, they have to right. So what is the solution they provided by the economic survey? One solution they have provided, that NBFCs, there should be a health score of these NBFCs. But as the government has not created such health score, so not relevant for prelims. Yes, that's a very good suggestion you can give in the main examination, that to deal with this NBFC crisis, we should have a health score. So based upon the different criteria such as the financial resilience of the NBFC, how much lending they have done to the short-term funds. Based upon that criteria, a health score should be created. But that is, but that is not relevant here for prelims purposes. Okay, right. So coming back to the basic idea, now we have seen the problem is here in the short-term borrowing, and especially in the time of the corona, you can call, earlier problems were already there, demonetization, GST. So the help is there for the liquidity crunch, right? And in that context, our current affair comes in. So the current affair is that scheme is that special liquidity scheme for NBFC and housing finance companies. Okay. So what the RBI has done? So RBI first of all has proposed this scheme. They have said that we will provide this special liquidity scheme to help the NBFC sector in that era through any special purpose vehicle, right? Because to improve their liquidity situation. Now we understand what they are saying. And what they will say, they will do this special purpose vehicle, mean the particular company that will be formed, they will support this eligible NBFCs of debt around 30,000 crore. The idea is to read it carefully, solely for the purpose of extinguishing the existing liabilities. So what are the existing liabilities are there? That liability part, they will be able to help them out so that this cycle goes out again and they can pay back well to the mutual fund, so that mutual fund come again and help this NBFC. Getting my point? So in this current time, when both of the sector requires help, NBFC and the mutual fund, so they are in this one shot, the government RBI is helping both of them, both NBFC and the mutual funds as well. So that people also keep investing in the mutual fund. They should not invest in gold and other things, speculative things. And the NBFC resilience also remains good. So that is the main idea. So they have set some criteria for the NBFCs. So for example, they should have net performing assets of less than 6%, NPA net less than 6% in the last one of the two preceding financial years, not reported under the SMA 1 and SMA 2 category. SMA 1, SMA 2, I hope you know from the NPA. So accounts are being determined based upon the interest and the loans you have not paid in terms of the days. So that is SMA 1 and SMA 2 categories. So that's the end of the discussion. So we have discussed two topics, that is PSCs and NBFCs. And for both of them, I have to discuss with you the context of it as well, right? Let us go. So next is which of the following statements is or are correct with reference to the recently published Export Preparedness Index, EPI. It aims to assess the readiness of the state in terms of their export potential and their performance. It is published by the Director General of the Foreign Trade. Actually, this index has came in August month. So I will discuss it again in the August month, but I thought that I'll include that into this question thing. Try to answer this question. Right. So let's move. So this is basically the report given by the Niti Aayog. It's a wonderful PDF if you can download, but I'll be covering it up under the exports heading. So very good data are given in that. So few of the factors that we need to keep in mind. First, Export Preparedness Index 2020 by the Niti Aayog. First of all, they have divided states into 4 categories. So they will be comparing the states based upon their location. Obviously, the state which is at the coastal, that will have a major advantage, isn't it? So we have the coastal state on Andhra Pradesh, coastal states, landlocked states, Himalayan states, and UT and the city states. Okay. So on these basis, first of all, you need to remember that states are classified. Second thing. Third thing, the weightage being given to major other things. So just keep in mind these things: policy, business ecosystem, export ecosystem, and export performance. So major weightage is being given to the business ecosystem. They have the subcategories as well, but we don't have to remember that. So 11 subcategories, I think 2, 4, 3, and 2. Yes, 11 subcategories have been given, sub-pillars, right? So within the policy, export promotion policy, institutional framework, business ecosystem, business environment, infrastructure, transport, access to finance, export infrastructure, trade support, R&D, right? Export performance, growth and orientation, and export diversification. Then which is the state that has topped? Just keep in mind, among the coastal state, Gujarat has topped, Landlocked state Rajasthan has top, Himalayan Uttarakhand, and in the UT is Delhi. Just keep in mind the top ones. That's all. Right? So let's go on. So answer will be yes. It aims to assess the readiness of the state in terms of their export potential and their performance. Yes, it is not published by the Director General of the Foreign Trade. It is published by the Niti Aayog. Just like the every index, every majority of the index by default published by the Niti Aayog, similar like that. Next is consider the following statement with reference to the Trade in Services Agreement, TISA. It's an attempt by the select WTO member countries to liberalize the service trade beyond the present WTO permits. It is led by the developing countries including India. Trade in the Service Agreement. Right. So, Trade in the Service Act, no, it is not. It is basically, you can remember it in a TRIPS plus formula. Just like we have discussed the data exclusivity, similarly, this is the same thing. So, going beyond what WTO says, and obviously, it is in the field of the services. So in the WTO, we have the agreement, that is General Agreement on the Trade in Services, right? But some of the countries, they require much more liberalization in the services, right? So Trade in Service Agreement is a plurilateral service trade liberalization among the selected WTO members, aiming to liberalize the service sector that are beyond WTO's GATS. So they are not happy with this GATS. They are saying, okay, that's fine, that's the minimum, but we want to go to this place. Just like the patent is fine, but we have to go to this data exclusivity thing, right? So this is called TRIPS plus, going beyond what is given in the TRIPS, or going beyond what is WTO, because WTO keeps in mind the interest of everyone, not only the rich countries, but also the poor countries. So in that regard, they are talking about. So it was launched in 2013. India is opposed to the provisions of the TISA. Some of the provisions stand still, ratchet and MFN. We don't have to go too much into it because it is not very, I will say, not formalized. It's under discussion. So if the question will come under which ages we are discussing this. So WTO and something question like what is the India's response, India being the service sector giant. So India must be supporting it. No, India is not supporting it. So like that you need to remember. So clauses are given. So standstill, ratchet and MFN clause. So these things are not important for the present perspective from present prelims examination. Right? So it's an attempt by the selected WTO member. Yes, not all the WTO members. And it is led by the developing countries. Answer is no. So option is A only. Next. Recently the Green Term Ahead Market was launched in India too. It's a September current affair. I've just included one question in it. So let us see the answer. So basically, just remember, if the question will come and it's a very recent one, the question will be like that only. So Green Term Ahead Market. So it is related to the green, right? So it can be related to the renewable sector energy. So yes, it is related to the participation. Yes. So it is related to the, So it is related to the participants in the renewable sector energy. We will discuss that in detail in the September month, but for our current purposes for prelims 2020, you just need to keep in mind that it is related to the renewable service sector, and it will lead to the competitive prices and the transparent and flexible procurement of this renewable energy. That's it. Green Term Ahead Market. Right? Okay. And why this is important actually? Because from the name itself, you cannot actually judge what it is for, and that is why it becomes more important. So answer is C, encourage participation in the renewable sector, energy sector. Next is with reference to the State Disaster Response Fund. Consider the following statements. It is constituted under the Disaster Management Act. It is jointly funded by the center and the respective state governments. It can be used for providing immediate relief but not for compensating for the loss of the property. Good question. Okay. So State Response Disaster Fund, yes, it is being constituted under the Disaster Management Act. So it talks about the National Disaster Response Fund and the State Disaster Response Fund. Along with the Response Fund, from the name itself, Response Fund, there should be another fund, that is State Disaster Mitigation Fund. And that is where the controversy lies. The Supreme Court, I think, told that you should form it. The government said, no, mitigation wala thing is very comprehensive. every scheme we make, for example, Awas Yojana, every scheme is a part of the mitigation only. Mitigation means taking effort to make a disaster resilient infrastructure, making sure that disaster does not happen. So the government said no need to make this fund because every scheme we are doing, that is for the mitigation purpose only. So no need to create a different fund for mitigation. Coming back to the question, so let us see very quickly. It is primarily a fund available with the states for disaster response. It is for the meeting the expenditure for these notified disaster that are cyclone, drought, the big disaster. And yes, they can provide a immediate relief to the victims of the state specific disaster, that is with the local context. Okay, for example, in one state, for example, in the Himalayan state, we will have only the we can have a specific disaster which we may not experience in the central or in the southern states. So that is a state specific disaster. Okay, so for that they can have the 10% of the fund they can use for this local state specific disasters. First thing is that. Okay, then they need to have a transparent guidelines for it. Then next thing is center has revised the ceiling for using SDRF from 25 to 30% to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. So next thing you need to keep in mind, and more importantly what you need to keep in mind, that the fund is used for immediate relief, not for the compensation for loss or damage to the property and the crops. So this is an important fact that you need to keep in mind, right? It is also not part of the preparedness, restoration, construction, because for that purpose we have the mitigation fund which has not been constituted, which has to be constituted, which has not been constituted as we have discussed. Okay, and the central government now contributes around 90% to this state disaster response fund. They have increased the ceiling from 75 to 90%. So what are the things you need to keep in mind? First, yes, it is under the Disaster Management Act. Yes. Second, for state specific disaster, it can use 10% of the fund. And third, they can provide the immediate relief, but not for the compensation of properties or the law or the crops. Okay, so option one, all the options are correct. Okay, the last question, RBI's voluntary retention route, for what purpose this is for? Voluntary retention route. Okay, so basically voluntary retention route, the RBI in consultation with the government has decided to put up this voluntary retention route. They proposed to introduce a separate channel, voluntary retention route, to invest the FPI, foreign portfolio investor, to invest in the debt markets in India. Okay, so debt markets in India, they want them to invest. So basically the idea is to provide them some regulatorily, some basically ease to invest in the debt market. That is the main idea. So attracting long-term stable FPI investment into debt markets while providing the FPI with the operational flexibility to manage their investments. The idea is to improve the investment in India with another way, and more importantly and specifically in the debt markets. Okay, that is the important thing. Eligible investor who can invest, yes, a FPI has to be registered with SEBI to participate through this route. Now, you know, in the economy, if the questions of these things are being asked, they do not ask a lot of technical issue unless until it has been discussed extensively in the economic survey or it has been in the news for long time. For example, it's been a current affair for the past 3 to 4 years. Then it becomes a critical issue. Now they ask a tough question. But if it's a new scheme, if it is a relatively tricky issue, then they don't discuss it. Then they don't ask these tough questions. They retain some sort of a very shallow level, they ask the question. So that's the end of the session, everyone. Let us quickly see what we have discussed. So we started discussion on PSEs. So we have discussed throughout the current affair a lot about this cooperative banks, because cooperative banks are very, very important for this year, whether it be urban cooperative or the rural cooperative. Urban cooperatives are more important. Then we have discussed the rollover risk in the NBFC that is being discussed in the economic survey. We have discussed the special liquidity scheme for NBFC and HFCs, right? So how basically they want to help, where they want to help, the context we have set. Then 5 questions we have seen. First is export preparedness index, second is trade in the service agreement, third is the green term ahead market, and last is state disaster response fund, and the last one was voluntary retention route. Okay, so with this, let us finish this session. I will discuss in the July part 2 the bundling scheme and a few more current affairs. and with this we'll finish up the 14th month of the economy with you all, right? So let us end this session. See you in the next session, everyone. Bye bye for now. Thank you.